fellow Black Caps, and welcome to the Spectrum, and welcome to RPGenesis, where characters are more than numbers. When you're starting a new RPG series game, it's not a bad idea to play a class that has simplified mechanics so that you can build up your confidence and work your way towards the more complicated classes. Now of course, everyone is an individual, and your experience might not match the experience of another player. If you're feeling confident enough to dive headfirst into the lore and make a character yourself, then go for it, by all means. But if you aren't confident enough, then I would suggest choosing a class that doesn't have massively complicated mechanics, something like a ranger, a fighter, or the star of today's episode, the Barbarian. The concept of a Barbarian is nice and simple: get hit, get angry, and hit back harder. A common saying amongst Barbarian players is, "I would like to rage!" As you watch, it won't be hard to see why. As the series goes on, we're going to be looking at other supplements to give us more options when it comes to creating a character. For now though, we're sticking to the player's handbook. Now, I do want to stress that what we're doing is not the way to create a character, because there is no the way. This is a way to create a character. There are other ways that you can do it other than what you'll see in the video, but for now, we're going to be following the book almost to a T and see what comes out of it. I also want to stress that if you've come here looking for optimal builds, or for min-max builds, or the best Barbarian builds, you're not going to find that here. All we're doing is just going through the process to encourage people to try dipping their toes into it and seeing what they come out with. Now with that said, let's get started. Following the order as presented in the player's handbook, our first task is to choose a race. Races in D&D are not just a pretty or ugly face. Each comes with a list of traits. Traits consist of various information and abilities about the race. These can be cosmetic with little to no impact on the game, like average height, weight and age, or a mechanic, like size, speed and languages. Now a quick disclaimer, while this is what's written in the book, you don't have to stick to it strictly. It's not set in stone. It's a guide more than anything else. You can decide for yourself if you're a bit taller or shorter than the average, or a bit wider or a bit thinner, but when it comes to a trait that involves the mechanics, you need to talk about that with your DM. The list will also include ability score increases and a few feats, which most players look at first. An ability score increase will allow you to increase at least one of your base stats by the number listed, and traits will give you some passive or usable skills. I personally like to create characters that are a bit unusual or break the mold a little. Stereotypically, the race of a barbarian is some form of strength-favouring race. Orcs, Goliaths, Schwarzeneggers. But I'm going to choose Elf. Why? Here's why. As you will see in the next step, Barbarians tend to fight without armour, and I want to go for a defence-based build. The ability increase that elves get means that my dexterity stat will increase by 2 once I determine what the base score is. This will add to my AC and make me harder to hit. My racial traits also give me dark vision, the ability to see up to 60 feet in the dark, but I can only see shades of grey in the dark, not full colour. Keen senses mean I'm proficient in perception, and I can spot things like hidden enemies or traps easier. Fey ancestry, which makes it harder for me to fall under the effects of a charm spell and I cannot be put to sleep by magical means. And finally, trance. Elves don't sleep. Instead, they enter a meditation-like state for 4 hours. Race doesn't necessarily end there though. Some races have a number of sub-races. A species, if you will, which will also add a score increase and new traits. I'm going with a high elf for an intelligence increase to give me some more defense against magic. Along with this sub-race, I will also receive elf weapon training to be proficient with more weapons, though admittedly this is useless for a barbarian as we will soon see, and I'm also granted access to a cantrip spell from the wizard spell list and 1 extra language. So at the end of the race option, my character will have an increase in dexterity by 2, an increase in intelligence by 1, is 103 years old, has a chaotic neutral alignment, is 6 feet tall, has a base movement speed of 30 feet, knows how to speak common language, elven and dwarvish, and knows the cantrip spell Firebolt. He also has the traits Dark Vision, Keen Senses, Fey Ancestry, and Elf Weapon Training. The book will also offer a series of typical names for your race. I decided to go unusual again and choose Oryx Steelheart, a name more dwarven in nature. This is backstory related, as you'll see at the end of the video. Before we move on to the next step, there is something I would quickly like to address about the choice of alignment. The debate as to what alignment actually means is commonplace in RPG circles. I'd recommend this video by Pro Jared about the topic to get a better idea on how to determine the meaning of your character's alignment, and this series by The Loading Crew to get better visual examples of alignment. I chose Chaotic Neutral because, again, it's relevant to my character's backstory. Now step 2 is to choose your class. We already know what it is, a barbarian. But what exactly can the barbarian do? Primarily, their abilities are related to melee combat and strength. They are designed to be tanks, shrugging off damage and hitting back just as, if not, harder. The Player's Handbook offers advice for a quick build to get you started with the class. For a barbarian, it suggests that your highest score should be in strength, followed by constitution, and then to choose the Outlander background. Again, the Player's Handbook is only a guide. You don't need to follow it. I won't be. And we'll get to which background I'm choosing later. Like races, classes also have a list to read, except it's a list of features, not traits. First on the list is your starting hit points. Where your health starts will match what your class's hit dice is. From there, an equation is used to determine if this number will be higher or lower than your hit dice. This will vary per class. For a barbarian, the equation is 12 plus your constitution modifier. We haven't determined what our starting stats are yet, so we'll solve this equation later. After that, it's your class proficiencies. These will also vary for each class, and it tells you what kind of gear and skills your class will be proficient in. Barbarians know how to use light and medium armor along with shields. They know how to use all weapons, hence why the elf weapon training is useless, but they don't know how to use any form of tool. Their proficient saving throws are strength and constitution. Then you get to choose 2 skills from a tailored list to be proficient in. I'm gonna go with intimidation and athletics. Then you get your starting equipment. Here you have a choice. Either you can choose from the default equipment list for the class, or you can roll for funds based on the starting wealth table. I am going to go with the default equipment, meaning I am given an explorer's pack and 4 javelins. The rest of the options regarding equipment are a list of multiple choices. I could have a choice of a great axe or any martial melee weapon. I chose a maul. My next choice was between 2 hand axes or any simple weapon. This time I took the hand axes. Now we come to class specific traits. At low levels you will only have a few, but as you grow they increase in number. At first level, barbarians gain 2 traits, unarmored defense and rage. When it comes to determining your AC for your character, the usual equation is 10 plus your dexterity modifier. This can be influenced by what armor you wear and if your character is holding a shield. In the case of the barbarian, with unarmored defense, it is a passive skill that means that while I'm not wearing any armor, my AC calculation will be 10 plus my dexterity mod plus my constitution mod. Should I wish to, I can use a shield and still gain this benefit. To put into perspective how powerful that is, let's have a visual demonstration. Let's say we've got 2 characters, a barbarian and a fighter, both with 20 in their constitution and dexterity stats, making their modifiers 5 on each one. The barbarian adds the 2 5s together to get 10, and they add that to their default 10 AC to get a total of 20. The fighter can only add their dexterity to their 10 AC, giving them 15 naturally. In order to match the barbarians, they would have to be wearing full heavy plate mail armor and holding a shield in order to just match it. Rage is slightly more complicated. During combat, you can use a bonus action to enter a state of primal ferocity, as long as you aren't wearing heavy armor. In this state, you can gain the following benefits: advantage on strength checks and saving throws, a +2 damage bonus to your damage rolls when using strength-based attacks, and resistance to all physical damage. However, each rage only lasts for 1 minute or until you're knocked unconscious, and will end early if you haven't attacked anything on your turn. You also can't cast spells, and you can only enter a rage a certain number of times before having to take a long rest to recharge. At level 1, you get 2 rages per rest and a +2 damage bonus. So to summarise step 2, Auric has the following features. Before any stat bonuses apply, he has a maximum of 12 HP, he has a proficiency bonus of +2, as does any level 1 character, and is proficient with light armour, medium armour, shields, all types of weapons, strength and constitution saving throws, intimidation, and athletics, but is not proficient in any sort of tool. He also has the skills Unarmoured Defense and Rage, which he can use a total of 2 times in between long rests and gets a +2 damage bonus when raging. With race and class chosen, it's now time to determine your stats ability scores. There are a number of ways to do this. The one we're going to look at in the video is one of the options listed in the player's handbook, where you use predetermined scores. These scores are 15, 14, 13, 12, 10 and 8. All you have to do is decide which number is going to be applied to what stat. As the book stated before, for a barbarian it's advised to focus primarily on strength and constitution. However, I've chosen to focus on defense, so I will be making my 2 highest stats, constitution and dexterity. A 15 in con, a 14 in dexterity, a 13 in strength, a 12 in wisdom, a 10 in intelligence and an 8 in charisma. And these are the scores before we've applied our previously mentioned racial bonuses. With those, I get to add an extra 2 to dexterity, making it 16, and 1 to intelligence, making it 11. After this, my stats and my modifiers look like this. The final step is to describe your character. Completely optional, but feel free to describe the look of your character if you so desire. We highly encourage you to, because it makes the character feel more personal to you and can help paint a picture of them in the minds of other players and the Dungeon Master. But the game does require that you determine their personality and background. Out of the 2, background is most important. The books will offer you a variety of choices. Each one will give you extra bonuses to apply to your character. These can include new skill and tool proficiencies, as well as the potential of extra languages. In the case of my chosen background, the Entertainer, this now means that Auric is proficient in the acrobatics and performance skills, and is proficient with the tools Disguise, Kit, and any musical instrument of my choice. I'm just going to keep it simple and say, a lyre. You will also be given extra starting equipment related to your background. These items are often used for story purposes and not always having a practical use. This, however, comes down to how your DM plays the game and the campaign setting. Your starting currency is also determined by your background. You also receive a feat that you can use in specific circumstances. However, this background also comes with a variant of it called Gladiator. With this background, I get the by popular demand feat, meaning that I can receive free lodging and food from an establishment, such as an arena, as long as I perform daily for them. This feature applies to both the Entertainer and Gladiator background, but as I have decided on the variant, I am also able to swap out the musical instrument I would normally acquire for an inexpensive and unusual weapon, so I'm going to take a net. An alternative option is, if none of the backgrounds don't appeal to you, you can create your own background. Instructions on how to do so are on page 125 on the player's handbook, and we will also go into this in a future episode. To determine your character's personality, there's a number of ways you could decide this. Your personality is made up of a personality trait, an ideal, a bond, and a flaw. These basically act as a guideline for things like your character's behaviour, your character's beliefs, and how your character may approach certain situations. Some Dungeon Masters, like myself, will reward players if they stick to these or do something very clever with them. When determining what your character's personality is, one of your options is to use the suggested characteristics that accompany your background choice by choosing or rolling from the provided tables. A second option is to freeform it and write whatever you want in there. A third option is to mix and match. And a fourth option, base it off somebody you know. For Auric, I decided to go with an overconfident and cocky attitude for his personality trait. His ideal is to be the best fighter and stay the best. His bond is going to be with another character you're going to see in the series later on, and his flaw is often underestimating who or what he fights. And with that section filled in, the level 1 Elven Barbarian Orig Steelheart is complete. But we're not going to stop here. Each of the characters we're going to develop in this series we will take to level 4. So now, we're going to walk you through the level up process, so you can see for yourself how classes can grow in strength and capability. A table can be found that informs you of what your character will gain with each level. A good place to start is with your hit dice. To increase your health, you may either roll the appropriate hit dice for your class and add your constitution modifier on top of the roll, then increase your health by this number. You may also just use the listed average number and apply the constitution modifier to that and increase your health by that result. Taking the average is a safe bet at lower levels to guarantee a helpful increase. Rolling the hit dice can of course increase it even further, but it's risk versus reward. A house ruling that I like to use is that the dice roll only counts if you roll higher than your average. We do this because we once had a barbarian player who got unlucky with his rolls and at level 4 had a health of 23 while the wizard had just broken 30. For level 2, I'm just going to play it safe and take the average, meaning Orig's health right now is 23. 2 new abilities are available for use now, Reckless Attack and Danger Sense. Reckless Attack is a pro and con attack option. The pro is that it gives you advantage on your attack rolls that use strength. The con is that any attack towards you also has advantage until your next turn. Danger Sense is a passive ability. If you are targeted by something you can see that will require you to make a dexterity saving throw and you are not blinded, deafened or incapacitated, you get advantage on the saving throw, adding another defensive capability to Orig. As easy as that, level 2 is complete, but level 3 is where it gets fun. Or hard, depending on your outlook of things. Once again, our health increases, we'll take the average to be safe, so now Orig is at 32 health. Also, the number of rages we can use has increased to 3. Now comes the fun/hard part. With some exceptions depending on the class, reaching level 3 means that you get to choose one of many skill trees to determine in what ways your character will develop as they level up. Depending on the class, the names of these skill trees will change. A barbarian calls them primal paths. Choosing a skill tree for any class can be hard, yet equally as enjoyable to decide because each one plays differently and sometimes you will find more than one of these paths that will fit the build you want while offering enticing effects, skills and features. Other supplements will feature even more choices, potentially making it even harder. But since we're sticking to the player's handbook for now, we only have 2 options. Path of the Berserker and Path of the Totem Warrior. A Berserker is what you would expect it to be, a warrior who enters into a blind fury attacking anything with animal-like instinct. Think Wolverine at his angriest. A Totem Warrior on the other hand you could compare to a Navajo-style warrior, using magical strength given to them through an animal spirit. This is the path that I'll be choosing, and with it I get the Totem Spirit feature. Now, I am going to change this a little bit to fit Orig's backstory. So rather than an animal spirit that gives him his strength, it is an ancestral blessing. But it will do the same thing. The only difference is I'm changing the source of the power. Choosing this option means I must choose one of the 3 listed animal spirits, bear, eagle or wolf. Each will give a passive effect whenever I enter a rage. I'm going to go with bear to gain resistance to all damage except psychic. With that, level 3 is complete. And now we move on to level 4 to finish up. This can also be a hard decision, but first let's get our health out the way. This time I'm going to take a chance and roll. I got a 3 on a D12. So Orig's final total health for this video is 37. Unless I can make up for it at level 4. When you reach level 4, you gain ability score improvement. There are 2 ways to utilize this. The first is to increase one of your stats by 2 points. The other is to increase 2 of your stats by 1 point each. Increasing my strength by 1 and my constitution by 1 will mean that for them both, the modifier is going to increase, which means that my attack rolls have now increased, and because of my constitution modifier, I now gain an additional 4 total health. This is because whenever your constitution modifier increases to the next one, you get to add your total level to your health points. So now, Orig is sat at a grand total of 41, matching what would have been the average. Not the best result, but I'll take it. There's also an optional third choice that you can have at level 4. Some DMs offer this, some do not. But this third option we're going to look at when we create the Bard. And with that said, our level 4 High Elf Totem Warrior Barbarian, Orig Steelheart, is complete. This isn't where your character has to stop though. Characters can reach a max level of 20, and during which time they'll gain new items, skills, treasures, and most importantly, stories to share with your friends in the years to come. Assuming of course your character lives that long. Thanks for watching everyone, and I hope you'll stick around for the rest of the D&D series, and hope that you'll join us next week where we'll look at our second game we'll be looking in line with D&D, Mutant Year Zero. Now in the meantime, I would love to hear about your concepts of barbarians or ones you've played in the game. Tell us everything, we love reading the comments and we really want to hear what you guys have come up with. For now though, let's bring Orig to life with a drawing with our guest colorist, Chemokin. Thanks for watching everyone, and remember you're always welcome at the Spectrum.
Orig Steelheart, the elven champion of Rawwell. Found as a baby among the rubble of a raided caravan convoy in the arms of his dying mother, Orig was rescued by a dwarven hunting party and was brought home to the underground dwarven city of Rawwell. He was adopted by a noble of the city named Ralim Steelheart. Ralim, having lost a son earlier in the year, renamed the elf baby Orig and raised him as his own. Ralim was a proud and self-centered man, focused on his own well-being and gain. He had been a popular gladiator in the arena, but retired due to illness. His popularity and wealth had dropped since he retired. He saw the adoption of Orig as an opportunity to restore his family name to its former glory. Ralim forced Orig to learn how to fight at a young age, filled his head with thoughts of glory in battle, and harshly punished him for anything he considered a failure. This would cause Orig to grow into a violent, short-tempered, and overconfident child who shared his father's vanity and selfishness. As Orig grew, so did his ego, pride, skill, and temper. Orig had become a skilled fighter, and at the age of 18 had an opportunity to prove himself when a mining crew had mistakenly dug into the home of a mind flayer, guarded by many ogre slaves. Orig volunteered himself to be part of a militia strike force to clear out the mind flayer's settlement. Showing a savage and merciless fighting capability, Orig had been a key part in winning the battle. Word of Orig's might made its way to Ralim. Seeing an opportunity to exploit his son's capabilities, he signed Orig up to become a house gladiator in the city's arena. Orig quickly became a favored fighter in the arena, granting him fame and wealth. Orig had grown to see himself as superior to the people of the city. He continued to grow arrogant, pride-filled, and egotistical. Everything he ever wanted, he would get. Anything he desired, he would take. And anyone who angered him, he would hurt. He had become as corrupt as his adopted father had. For 3 years he fought undefeated in the arena, until that faithful day when he faced the gunslinger, Montague. An adventuring party named the Tempest Talons made a stop in the city. On the same day, Orig was fighting in the arena and issued an open challenge to anyone in the audience. Montague, a member of the Tempest Talons, accepted. Montague made short work of Orig, humiliating him, and, in his eyes, he left him a disgrace. That night, Ralim had scolded and punished Orig severely. As the Tempest Talons were leaving, Orig stopped them, demanding he travel with them so he can best Montague in combat and win back the favor of his father and fans. The party protested at first, but Montague accepted and invited Orig to join. Orig now travels with the Tempest Talons, seeking revenge on Montague and to spread his name across the land.